just been handed details of the latest MRP, that is seat-by-seat polling done by YouGov, for what they expect the general election result to be were it to be held about now. Can we get this firmed up, please? Because I can't believe these figures. Is this right? Is this a late April Fool's? I'm going to bring you the details of the latest MRP poll. It's one poll, but my God. So this is the latest poll, MRP, so seat by seat, by YouGov, conducted in the last few weeks, and is separate to the one they conducted in January. The breaking news is this: the Tories are on course for a worse result at a general election than John Major's defeat in 1997. According to this YouGov poll, Labour is poised to take 403 seats, Tories reduced to 155. That therefore equates to a majority for Labour of 154. The result is worse for the Tories than the last MRP YouGov conducted in January. So things are getting worse, even as the government will try and tell you the economy is turning a corner, that taxes have been, quotes, cut. Even after the budget, where they tried to take the money off national insurance, which has just about fed through, the pot is getting worse for them. 11 cabinet ministers are facing losing their seats: Jeremy Hunt, Penny Mordaunt, Grant Shapps, Mark Harper, Alice Shaw, blah, blah, blah. There'll barely be an opposition left. That is absolutely incredible. A bigger defeat than 1997 is what the latest YouGov MRP poll is currently suggesting for the Conservative Party. And it will fuel further, I think, WhatsApp groups firing up within Conservative Party ranks about, well, what do we do? Do we march to the sound of gunfire with Rishi Sunak in charge of an organisation that is going to head to defeat, or do we rip it all up and start again, put someone in there who's maybe going to give us a fighting chance, they will think. Ladies and gentlemen, as always with British politics, prepare for chaos.
Another large opinion poll predicts a Tory wipeout at the general election. I don't know why this is news anymore. Shouldn't they just ditch Rishi now and see if a proper Conservative can turn things around? Well, Stephanie doesn't say who she thinks is a proper Conservative. Labour is now predicted to win more than 400 seats again, with only 154 for the Tories. But that's up on 98 from the one at the weekend. Do you take any cheer from that, Michael Brown?
Well, you're speaking to somebody who between 1994 and 1997 was on political death row. Although I could never admit it until 1 minute past 10 on the 1st of May 1997, I knew I was going to lose. And for those 3 years, it was absolutely horrible. But this is even worse. I have a bet on with Michael Portillo that we will look back on the Conservative victory in defeat of whatever it was, 165 seats that we got. That will be a triumph compared to what is going to happen this time round. This poll, as you rightly say, is a little bit better in that David Davis holds his seat on this poll.
He could finally become leader of the Conservative Party.
On the poll on Sunday, he was going to lose. And I did jest with Portillo that we would end up with... I think Michael Fabricant holds his seat on the poll on Sunday.
Just rejoice at that
So
news.
he might be the leader of the Conservative Party. But what is clear is that all the candidates who are allegedly the runners and riders between now and the general election, if they were foolish enough to do anything stupid against Rishi Sunak, I think they all lose.
Apart from Kemi Badenoch.
Ah, right, OK.
Because my colleagues, for lack of any work to do this afternoon, when I got into the office, they were gathered round a computer, typing in constituents, saying, well, they're gone.
Well, certainly
he's gone.
Schnaps, or whatever his name is, the defence minister. Chaps.
Have a bit of respect.
There was something to do with Schnaps and... he's doing Schnaps with Shapps, isn't he? That's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's gone, Mordaunt's gone, and one of the others, allegedly front-runner,
I think 17 cabinet ministers would lose their seats.
Yeah.
I think in 1997.
So they're doomed, but they'll be even worse doomed and possibly be forced into an immediate general election. I do not think the country will stand for another period of turmoil between now and the summer. We're only arguing about 6 or 7 months anyway now, so they're stuck with Sunak. It's the best hope that they've got, and it's going to be between 98 seats and 155. The only slight saving grace is that when we were behind in the polls by around 20-25% for most of the period between 94 and 97, the actual day of the election, there was a 13% lead that Tony Blair had over John Major. So it will tighten, and maybe the reform might not do quite as well. But there is a Labour government on its way.
I sense the sound of straws being well and truly clutched there, Michael. Sarah?
It's interesting to see the leap of 50 seats in the space of a few days, but I think it feels quite accurate. Certainly from the people that I know within the party who perhaps would have been real stalwarts, would have been out campaigning. That is not on their agenda for the next few months. They certainly haven't spent their Easter weekend going out campaigning for the local elections like they would have done in the past. They're not even really thinking about what they would be doing in the May elections. It's almost like, who should we go and campaign for so when they do lose their seat, we don't feel as guilty that we didn't go and help them. And I think it will be really interesting to see what happens to the party post the general election, when there will be a vacuum of people who've kind of held the party together.
But what about
5
this
years.
idea of changing the leader again?
Terrible idea.
Well, let me play devil's advocate.
Okay.
Because the polls, all of the polls show that if Penny Mordaunt or even Kimmy Badenoch took over now, they would get a bit of a boost. So they might lose, say, 30 seats fewer than they might otherwise do. Wouldn't that be worth it?
I would be delighted to see Penny Mordaunt as the Prime Minister and the leader of the Conservative Party. I think that would be a really good thing. However, I really don't think it would sit properly with the country when it has been so long since the general election and there have been so many Prime Ministers. They would have to call an election immediately. Should be the Prime Minister for 6 weeks during a general election campaign. What is the point in that? I think the country has got to go to the election with Rishi Sunak as the Prime Minister.
As long as she gets more than 49 days.
Yes, then it's been worthwhile then, yes. So just have a really long, drawn-out general election campaign, and then she's definitely done more than there's trust. But I think for now, unfortunately, they've just got to stick with what they've got.
Richard?
I don't know what a psychoanalyst would call it, but there's some sort of weird process of fantasy and projection that goes on where large sections of the Conservative Party tell themselves that the problem is Sunak. The problem's Sunak. Oh, yeah. We just need to get rid of Sunak and then things will be at least a little bit better. The problem is so much more structural and long-term than that. You think about 2019 was a fantastic success for the Conservative Party. That was a broad-based win, bringing together social conservatives, economic liberals. It was a coalition win. That's what you do if you want a big majority. But it was, of course, the first big majority, the first convincing win that the Conservative Party has had since 1987. And that tells us that there's a big structural problem going on. I would say it's the liberal economic reforms from Thatcher and Major have been, if you like, too successful for them. It's deracinated our industrial communities.
It's what?
Deracinated?
Is that a word?
Anyway, destroyed. Let's say destroyed. Sort of stripped the assets out of. And it's taken the Conservatives to a place where actually people aren't going to be voting for them anymore. They destroyed that coalition. They were only able to get it back together in 2019 under the very specific circumstances of, Dominic Cummings engineering a particular situation in Parliament so that the question on everyone's lips when they got to the ballot box would be, how do I get Brexit done? And at the same time, they had Jeremy Corbyn as the alternative. There is watching that permanent structural problem that the Conservative Party are facing, the different factions of the party, rather than admitting that there's a problem that they need to deal with, instead are doing this kind of, this fantasy thing of, we'll just get rid of Sunak and then it'll all be okay.
Gavin?
Well, I think those members who are currently serving the Conservative Party in Parliament should take either a morning or an afternoon each until the general election and be leader for a morning, like in a children's playgroup. You could be...
That does mean Bill Cash becomes Prime Minister, Gavin.
It could be worse, possibly. I don't know. Look, I think the question, what's interesting from the listener's question is the idea that some proper Conservative, as opposed to all these other improper Conservatives or whatever they are. This just so reminds me. It reminds me of if only we'd done Brexit properly. Well, maybe at some point you have to think there is no way in which a Conservative taking over the ship would be any more proper than the ones that there have been. And the fundamental problem isn't with the leader, it's with the party itself and the fact that it seems to have run out of ideas and run out of steam. And when I hear the words, if it was only a proper Conservative or a proper right-winger or whatever it is, it reminds me of those Marxists that when I was a kid at university who used to say, if only communism had been done properly, it would be so much better. It's not going to happen.
Can I congratulate you for lasting 26 minutes before you mentioned the word Brexit?
Mm-hmm. Oh, Brexit, yes. And that's another thing.
No, I don't. We might have a question on it later.
We might, but it's not been done properly.
Or Corey, we might not. Michael Brown, look, you've been a close observer of politics for many, many years. Have you ever, the Conservative Party has gone through many crises over the last 40 or 50 years, but do you think it's ever been worse than this one?
It's never been as bad as this. First of all, it was difficult I expected to lose my seat in 1992. We had a surprise victory, thanks to Neil Kinnock, as much as whatever we were doing. Ken Clarke had repaired the economy by 1997. He reduced income tax in the budget 6 months in the November budget of 1996. It was a fantastic budget. Growth was projected to be 3.5% in the forthcoming year. He handed over a golden inheritance, but even that didn't save us at all. We had run out of steam, but we were broadly united. There was some problem with Maastricht. We had Maastricht rebels. We did have the referendum party, but we did win 165 seats nevertheless. And broadly speaking, although it was gruesome. I literally, every day I went into work, both in the constituency and in the House of Commons, I knew that I was not coming back when the election finally came. But this is far, far worse than then. We did actually hold quite a lot of Conservatives. As I said, we were only 13 points behind on the actual day of the general election. And this time round, the difference is the people who most aggressively want to defeat the Conservative Party are Conservative voters. That's what Labour needs to understand.
It's difficult to come back from that, Gavin, isn't it?
It's very difficult. I was thinking when you were talking there, I think it was Jim Callaghan, 1979. He said, essentially, no matter what you do, we're going to lose.
Yeah.
He said it more elegantly. And I'm afraid it does seem like that for the party. And that's why I wonder, what is Rishi Sunak hanging on for? I think he's a perfectly decent person. He's not a charismatic leader. He doesn't connect very well, but he's a decent enough guy. Why doesn't he just say, we should all
because he's Prime Minister. He can have another 6 months.
Gavin, yes.
Is that it, do you think?
He's been Prime Minister for 1 year and 6 months. If he can hold it till October, 2 years, and by the way, a raw point here, that's another £50,000 salary for all of those who are going to be killed by the voters at the election, and all the hangers-on cabinet ministers. Look,
not sure that comes into his calculation. To be honest,
I'm not sure he cares.
For backbench MPs, it does.
Yeah.
When he threatens, as allegedly he's done, that if you do muck around with the leadership after the May elections, I will have to call a general election before we ever get anywhere near a successor. The back end of it is all the time was, for me, when's the general election coming? Another 6 months is another 6 months' pay. That's £50,000.
But do you not worry? You're not worried that as a country we're thinking, what's the point of this?
That is the problem. Sunak makes statements about this, that, and the other. He interrupted our evening about 3 or 4 weeks ago, standing on the steps of Downing Street. It was a complete waste of time. I don't know what's happened since about all of that. Hate crimes and all that carry on. It was a meaningless statement. He can't enact anything new. The country needs a general election as soon as possible because we all know what the outcome's going to be.
And that's what we hear from our listeners every day of the week. It doesn't matter whether they're right wing or left wing, there is the mood now. We just want to get it over with.